Hello and welcome. My name is Cameron Stewart and I am the Senior Technical Marketing Manager here at SolarEdge. And today we are going to wire up a SolarEdge load controller to a contactor that has a coil with 240 volts. Now this is a 3-pole contactor, and the reason I have a 3-pole contactor is because it's oftentimes lower cost than a 2-pole contactor at this ampere rating. And I'm just going to abandon the 3rd pole here and not use it. The reason I like 240 volt contactors is because then I don't have to run a neutral to the coil. I'm going to derive the control from the contactor itself and have a little jumper going from line 2 to the coil. And then we're going to go from normally open to the coil. But let's get inside and do some actual work. So to get open the load controller, all we have to do is put our screwdriver into these little tab holes and apply a little pressure while lifting up on the cover and take the cover off. Now let's look at our load controller. We can see our load controller has line 1, line 2. This is the power supply side of the load controller. And we have our channels 1 and 2. So a single load controller can operate 2 contactors and they will operate simultaneously. So we're just going to use 1 contactor today, and so we're going to wire from channel 1. You can do channel 2 or channel 1, but we're going to wire from channel 1 normally open to the coil, and we're going to go common to line 1, and we're going to go line 1 and line 2 to line 1 and line 2 respectively. So let's go ahead and do that. So I pre-crimped on my spade connectors just to make my life a little bit easier. But if you were out in the field, you would add your conduit, pull your wire, and you're going to crimp on these spade connectors to your wires. Now you're going to want to use stranded wires for anything that's crimped on. You should not use solid conductors for crimped on spade terminals. Okay, so we're going to go from line 1 and line 2 to line 1 and line 2. Now to go ahead and open up the compression spring, you're just going to take your flat blade screwdriver and put it on the spring terminal here, just like that. Push the conductor in and then let go and tug test, you're good. We'll do this on line 2. Okay, tug test, and we're good. So now I'm just going to route my cables. Line 2 for red, and line 1 for black. Okay, so let me give you a little spin so you can see what I did. So again, we're on the supply side of the load controller. This is how the load controller is getting its power, and it's connected to the supply side of the contactor. So when we wire our supply, we're going to go from the breaker to this top here, and that's where the load controller is going to get its power from. Now we're going to do the control side. So again, we're going to go normally open to the coil, and that's how you remember, like I want the coil to be normally open or normally closed. And so that's how you remember what goes to the coil, the state you want it to be, and I want it to be normally open. And this is a 240 volt coil, so I'm going to use a black wire here. So normally open to coil. And then I'm going to go common to line 1. So I'm going to use another black wire. Okay, so now we're going to go from common to line 1. So same thing, I'm going to push my tool down on the pressure clamp, release it, manage my wire, and push my spade connector into this onto the spade. There we go. So let me spin so you guys can see. So here we are normally open to the coil on the bottom, and from common to line 1. Now this is a 240 volt coil, so we still have to derive our 240 volts. That's where our little jumper comes into play. So I've got a jumper with a spade terminal on either side, and I'm just going to connect the spade terminal from line 2 to the coil. So now we have 240 volts. We have line 1, this is a pass-through, and then we have 240 because of this little jumper. So now I can save one wire from the backup load. Now I can save one wire from the controlled load, so I don't have to run a neutral. So now all that's left is we're going to go from the load side to the load. So just line 1 and line 2. And we're going to go from the breaker to the power supply. Line 1 and line 2 again. Okay, I'm going to give you a little spin. And that is how you wire up a SolarEdge load controller to a 240 volt coil contactor.